Sergeant Leonardo, please start your recording. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's remote New York City Council hearing of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. At this time, would all panelists please turn on their video? Once again, if all panelists could please turn on their video. Thank you. To minimize disruption, please place all electronic devices on vibrate or silent mode. If you wish to submit testimony, you may do so at landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Again, that is landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Chair Moya, we are ready to begin.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Good morning. I'm Council Member Francisco Moya, Chair of the Subcommittee on Zoning and Franchises. I am joined today remotely by Council Members Rivera, Grodenchik, Levin, Landsman. We are also joined by members Ampry Samuel and Yeager. As a preliminary point of information, I would like to note that LU 658 for the 50 Old Fulton Street proposal is being laid over. Today we will vote on a rezoning proposal for which the subcommittee held a public hearing on September 14th. And we will also hold public hearings on zoning proposals with a special permit application. But before we begin, I recognize the subcommittee council to review the remote hearing procedures. I'd like to turn it over to our council.
Thank you, Chair Moya. I am Arthur Ha, counsel to this subcommittee. Members of the public wishing to testify were asked to register for today's hearings. If you wish to testify and have not already registered, we ask that you please do so now by visiting the council's website at www.council.nyc.gov by now. Members of the public may view a live stream broadcast of this meeting at the New York City Council website. When called to testify, individuals appearing before the subcommittee will remain muted until recognized by the chair to speak. Applicant panels will be recognized as a group and called first. Members of the public will be called and recognized one at a time. When the chair recognizes you, your microphone will be unmuted. Please take a moment to check your device and confirm that your microphone is on before you begin speaking. And I will remind all participants that there is some delay in the process of unmuting. Public testimony will be limited to 2 minutes per witness. If you have additional testimony you would like the subcommittee to consider, or if you have written testimony you would like to submit instead of appearing here before the subcommittee, you may email it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and or project name in the subject line of your email. During the hearing, council members with questions should use the Zoom raise hand function. The raise hand button should appear at the bottom of your participant panel. Council members with questions will be announced in order as they raise their hands, and Chair Moya will then recognize members to speak. Witnesses are reminded to remain in the meeting until they are excused by the chair, as council members may have questions. Finally, there will be pauses over the course of this meeting for various technical reasons, and we ask that you please be patient as we work through any issues. Chair Moya will now continue with today's agenda items. Chair, excuse me, Chair Moya, you are muted.
My apologies. Thank you. Thank you for that, Arthur. I want to acknowledge that we've been joined by Council Member Reynoso. And with that, today we will be voting to approve LUs 678 and 679 for the 5914 Bay Parkway rezoning related to property in Councilmember Yeager's district. The application seeks a rezoning map amendment to change an R5 district to an R6 C24 district, and a zoning text amendment to map a mandatory inclusionary housing area on the east side of Bay Parkway between 59th and 60th Street with MIA option 1, 2, and the workforce option. The proposal would facilitate the development of a 9-story mixed-use building with ground floor retail, community facility use, and residential use. Councilmember Yeager is in support of this project, and I now call for a vote to approve LUs 678 and 679. Council, if you would please call the roll.
Chair Moya.
How would I?
Councilmember Levin.
I vote aye.
Councilmember Lanceman.
Aye.
Councilmember Reynoso.
Permission to explain my vote.
Motion granted.
I just want to say that what we're voting on with this application speaks to the issues we have with ULURP and the need to change it significantly. While we had members of the city council thinking about voting for a project that was prioritized by developers in Industry City, in this one case, no one's talking about member deference when it comes to the building of unaffordable housing in parts of the city where it's greatly needed. We are in a housing crisis. It is a housing crisis, especially members in Black and brown districts that have bear the burden of having to build all the affordable housing almost exclusively in those districts. Approving this application is saying that the affordable housing being built in your district exclusively is exactly the way we want to continue to do this work. Segregation in the city is something that we want to continue to do. And I can, in good conscience, vote for a project that is giving a 1-bedroom apartment for $2,500 and that is considered affordable. This developer is getting a parking increase, $2,500 worth of rent. I don't know where, if any, there is a give back to the city for allowing this rezoning to happen. So while I respect what members are doing in their own communities, in these cases, this is about the greater good. It isn't about an individual member. It isn't about an individual district. So because the workforce option is being used here, I'm going to have to vote no.
Councilmember Grodenchik.
Aye.
Councilmember Rivera.
Aye.
Currently, the vote stands at 5 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and no abstentions. The vote will remain open.
Thank you, Council. I now open the public hearing on LU 682 through 685 for the 1510 Broadway rezoning relating to property in Councilmember Ambry Samuel's district in Brooklyn. The application by the New York City Department of Housing Preservation and Development seeks approval of a set of related land use actions, including Urban Development Action Area Project designation and disposition approval, acquisition of a portion of the development site by the city, a zoning map amendment to change an R6 C13 district to an R71 C24 district, and a zoning text amendment to map a mandatory inclusionary housing area utilizing options 1 and 2. Together, these actions would facilitate the construction of a new 8-story building with approximately 107 units of affordable housing and approximately 9,000 square feet of ground floor commercial space. I want to now recognize Councilmember Ambry Samuels to offer her remarks on this project. Councilmember.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Chair Moya, for the opportunity. I've met with this developer and HPD on several occasions, and I am actually proud to be supportive of this development. It sits right there on the Broadway side of my district, which is the northern part of my district, where we're seeing a lot of development and changes in the community. And this will allow an opportunity for real affordable housing. And I also want to say that I appreciate the thoughtfulness in the design of the building and the materials used, and even the concept of eventually being able to work with MTA for a possible elevator because of the increase in the population size in that area and the need for an elevator period on that subway line. So I am in support. There was a lot of community input and engagement, and I look forward to updates if there are any during this presentation, and I do have a few questions after. So thank you so much for the time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Council, if you could please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item will include Lynn Zhang, HPD, Rella Fogliano, appearing on behalf of the sponsor, McQuestion Companies, and Stacy Wong, principal architect for the project. Also available for questions and answers as needed are Aaron Buchanan for HPD, and Joe Apicella, Ron Schulman, and Bill Wilkins for the development team. Panelists, if you have not already done so, please accept the unmute request in order to speak.
Council, if you could please administer the affirmation.
Panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before this subcommittee and in answer to all council member questions?
I do.
Yes.
I do.
Thank you. And we are now in receipt of your slideshow presentation for this proposal. When you're ready to present the slideshow, it will be displayed on the screen. The presentation will be advanced by the next slide when you say next. And please note that there might be a slight delay as the presentation is loaded, as well as for the advancing of slides. And finally, before we begin, please state your name and affirmation once again for the record. And you may begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Council Member. My name is Lynn Zhang. I'm Director of Brooklyn Planning at the Department of Housing Preservation Development. Land use numbers 682 through 685 are related to proposed ULURP actions for a project known as 1510 Broadway in Brooklyn Council District 41. The project area includes one city-owned vacant lot located at Block 1489, Lot 11, and one privately owned lot on Lot 1. The ULURP actions before the City Council involve Urban Development Action Area Project, known as UDAP, designation, project approval, disposition of city-owned land, acquisition approval, as well as a zoning map and zoning text amendments, establishing mandatory inclusionary housing area. More specifically, land use number 682 is related to zoning text amendment allowing for the establishment of an MIH area under options 1 and 2. This will allow for the proposed construction of approximately 27 permanently affordable housing units under MIH option 1. Land use number 683 seeks approval for the city to reacquire a portion of block 1489, lot 11, which will be reserved for the MTA to add a future ADA accessible elevator that's in connection to the adjacent Halsey Street subway station. Land use number 685 is related to the land use item seeking to amend the zoning map by amending the existing R6 with C13 commercial overlay, instead mapping an R71 and C24 commercial overlay. This action will allow for the construction of one 8-story entirely affordable housing building with approximately 107 units plus 1 unit for super and approximately 9,793 square feet of ground floor commercial space. Land use number 684 is related to the proposed project that would be developed under HPD's extremely low and low affordability low income program known as ELLA. The ELLA program provides to create rental housing to low-income families with a range of incomes from 30% to 80% of the area median income. Projects may include A portion of the units with rents affordable to households earning up to 100% AMI. Projects also include units rented to formerly homeless families and individuals. Development site located at 1510 Broadway will be developed by sponsors selected through a competitive process geared towards certified MWBE organizations. The proposal includes the construction of an 8-story mixed-use building with 107 rental units plus a supers unit. Under MIH option 1, 25% of the residential floor area must be permanently affordable housing units, affordable to households with income at a weighted average of 60% of AMI. Under MIH option 2, 30% of the residential floor area must be permanently affordable housing units affordable to households with incomes at a weighted average of 80% of AMI. Additionally, as per HPD's requirement, an additional 15% of the units will be permanently affordable. Therefore, based on the number of rental units for this project, 16 units will be permanently affordable in addition to the MIH units for a total of 43 permanently affordable units. The building will comprise a mixture of studios, 1, 2, and 3 bedroom apartments. 15% of the unit count will be set aside for homeless households. Targeted incomes will range from up to 30% AMI to 80% AMI, which equates to approximately $17,307 a year in salary to $88,800. Rents will range from $362 to $2,037 depending on household income and family size. The project also includes approximately 9,793 square feet of ground floor retail space. The building will be constructed to meet enterprise green and LEED standards. Amenities include spaces for residential bicycle storage on the ground floor, laundry facilities, and recreational spaces. Additionally, the project includes reserving space for future construction of an ADA elevator adjacent to the Halsey Street subway entrance. In order to facilitate development of 1510 Broadway and the creation of affordable housing units, HPD is before the council seeking approval of land use numbers 682, 683, 684, and 685. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Rella Vogliano. She's going to give a brief introduction to the development team, and before Stacy Wong from Gluck Plus will go over the presentation, the visual presentation of the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Good morning. I'm Rella Fogliano, principal of McQuestion Development. This project was awarded to us in 2017 under an MWBE RFP through the City of New York. McQuestion is very dedicated to the City of New York in providing affordable housing. We've been doing so since 1992. We're very excited that this day has come. I want to thank all of the council members, but especially Council Member Samuels, who has been supportive of this project. And we hope to bring this to fruition and make the community very proud in every development that we do. We are very much engaged with the community, and again, happy to be here and thank you. I'm going to turn it over to Stacy Wong. I'm open to questions later on, of course, but I'm going to open this to Stacy Wong, our architect, to lead you through all of the essential aspects of this project. Thank you.
Thanks, Rella. So I don't see the slideshow up. I'm not sure if everybody else sees it. Oh, there it goes.
Coming up, yep. There's going to be a slight delay.
Okay,
so
no problem.
Just say next, and sometimes it'll take a few seconds, but.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Stacy Wong. I'm a principal at Gluck Plus Architecture. I'm the architect for this project. So we can go to the next slide, please. On the screen is a list of requested land use actions that was discussed in the testimony by Lynn Zhang. HPD and DCAS are the applicants, and the application was certified on December 2nd, 2019. The site was designated to McQuestion Development LLC under HPD's MWBE RFP representing the city's efforts to build capacity with minority and women-owned businesses. Next slide. This is an aerial view of the subject vacant city-owned site. It is located within Brooklyn's Community District 16 and borders Community Districts 3 and 4. The surrounding area includes a variety of building types, from low-scale 1 and 2 family homes to higher-scale 13 and 16-story NYCHA buildings nearby. The site fronts Broadway, which can be characterized as local, commercial, and retail, and is adjacent to the J. Halsey Street subway station and the elevated JZ subway line that runs along Broadway. Next slide, please. And this is a project overview of the proposed development. Approval of the proposed actions will facilitate the development of approximately 107 units of affordable housing, serving low-income families and individuals. It will include ground floor commercial space that will activate vacant city-owned land on a portion of Broadway that has long been overshadowed by the elevated subway. And approval of this project also paves the way for a new building that has been designed to include space reserved for a future ADA improvement to the adjacent subway station. Next slide, please. The development is approximately 116,000 gross square feet or 98,000 zoning square feet over 8 floors above grade and a partial cellar. The trapezoidal shaped site is bordered by Broadway and the elevated J train along the top of the slide, Jefferson and Saratoga Avenues on the left, and Hancock Street to the right. The site is well served by transit with a bus stop in front of the site as well as city bikes across the street. The unit mix is comprised of 7% studios, 44% one bedrooms, and the remaining 48% being 2 and 3 bedrooms to provide family-sized affordable units for the neighborhood. Next slide. This ground floor plan has added color to better illustrate the allocation of space. In blue is approximately 10,000 square feet of commercial floor area located exclusively along Broadway, with approximately 700 square feet of that set aside for local arts and cultural nonprofit organizations. The blue arrows indicate the multiple possible entries to these spaces, which is critical to reinforcing Broadway as the retail and transit corridor for the neighborhood. In purple is the off-street loading berth serving the commercial floor area, and it's located mid-block on Hancock, as far from the street intersection as possible. The remainder of the ground floor space in yellow is allocated to residential floor area, including 2 residential lobbies, 6 apartments, and accessory spaces such as indoor resident bike storage. And the red arrows on either corner indicate the 2 residential entrances at the corners of the site. The ground floor apartments are concentrated along Hancock and Saratoga to remove them as far as possible from the elevated train infrastructure. And the residential street wall at the ground floor has been set back from the property line and will be planted with vegetation to further buffer those ground floor apartments from the sidewalk. And on the upper right-hand corner of the project, you can see a small gray square facing Broadway. And this space is for a future MTA elevator to access the adjacent Halsey Street station platform. And this space will be concealed behind the building facade and inaccessible until such time an elevator can be constructed. No parking is required for the commercial space nor for affordable units in a transit zone, and no parking is provided. Next slide. This is a view of the project from Broadway. The design incorporates a building setback after the ground floor to provide maximum distance between the elevated train and the residential units on the 2nd through the 8th floors. The goal is to maximize daylight and views for every apartment and avoid apartments directly overlooking the subway platform. This setback also allows for an outdoor courtyard amenity for all residents, which is at the heart of the building. At approximately 7,000 square feet, the courtyard will include landscaping, pavers, seating, and a children's play area. And the indoor resident recreation room and common laundry room are centrally located on that 2nd floor adjacent to the courtyard. This building setback also has the added benefit of being visible and distinctive when walking along Broadway, allowing daylight to come down to the sidewalk level and creating a unique sense of place on the city block. The ground floor design incorporates large expanses of glazing, approximately 11 foot high, light colored ground faced masonry, and a darker tone signage band and mullions to provide transparency, visual variety, and contrast. And dark sky compliant light fixtures are located along those masonry panels for both a safer pedestrian experience as well as visual interest on the building facade in the evening. Multiple commercial entry points, as well as a signage band along the length of the building, allows for retail tenant space that is open, visible, flexible, and viable for a variety of commercial tenants. Next slide. And this is a view of the building from Saratoga Avenue. The residential entry and lobby are located at the corner at the lower left-hand spot on the image. And the ground floor apartments are all buffered with plantings within that street wall setback. The overall building expression is inspired by the neighborhood context. Although there is a 16-story NYCHA residential tower across the street, and you can see that at the far right of this image, the neighborhood fabric is actually predominantly 3 to 4 story townhomes in multiple colors. Our project used the neighborhood's townhome fabric as inspiration and articulated the building massing and facade material treatment to reference the vertical proportions of a townhouse module. Each townhome is clad in a different tone of white and gray, with the exception of a few townhomes clad in a brighter color. Next slide. The project will be financed through HPD's ELA program and will serve households earning between 30 to 80% of AMI, with a 15% set aside for formerly homeless population. Household annual incomes range from approximately $17,000 to $88,000, and at least 50% of the units will be below 50% AMI. Nearly half of the units will be family-sized 2 and 3 bedroom units, and the building and the apartments will remain affordable for 60 years. Next slide. McQuestion Development has partnered with the Local Development Corporation of East New York, who has served the East Brooklyn community for over 40 years. The team has a robust plan for local hiring and MWBE hiring. They have very strong community outreach and connections that are supported by their partnerships with workforce development groups, their large database of local and MWBE businesses in the building trades, and their commitment also to certifying at least 12 new MWBE companies per year. The team also has a strong marketing plan to reach local residents as future tenants, utilizing their vast network. And as an HPD housing ambassador, they have deep experience working with people to help them prepare and apply for the affordable housing lotteries. Next slide. And this slide just shows the ULURP timeline based on where we are today, September 24th, at the City Council hearing. And I think I will open it up to questions and the other applicant panelists to be able to answer specific, more detailed questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I'm going to take just a quick couple of questions before I turn it over to Councilmember Ampry Samuels and some other council members who may have some questions. I just want to get back to talking about the elevated, the train that goes by on Broadway. And you might have mentioned it, I'm sorry if I missed it. Is the building being designed to help reduce the noise emissions into the apartments?
Stacy, I think.
You just got to unmute yourself. Yeah, just. Go ahead. You can unmute yourself.
Okay, great, perfect, thank you. So yes, the building is going to be designed to deal with the sound from the elevated train. The EAS for the building actually stipulated very specific window and wall noise attenuation criteria for the building. The apartments facing the train actually have a stricter criteria and very specific criteria than the facades not facing the elevated train. And
Can you just, what was the criteria you said? I'm sorry.
Sure. So the EAS stipulated a window wall noise attenuation of 33 dBA for the building facades facing the train, and 31 dBA for the facades facing Saratoga and Hancock. And so when we're, in essence, in order to achieve that, we find in a composite OITC rating for the solid wall, the windows, and the PTEC units combined to make sure that we're meeting that criteria. And so on, we've worked on a couple of different projects in very close proximity to elevated subway lines, and are very comfortable with very specific products for windows that have certain OITC ratings, as well as for the PTECs. There are special sound attenuation packages that can be ordered for these PTEC units. And then the solid wall with these components get analyzed by our acoustic consultant to be able to show that it's meeting the criteria stipulated in EAS.
Great. And towards the end of the presentation, you're talking about local hires and MWBEs. Can you describe what the plan for the local hires is going to be in construction, and how many local hires would typically be involved in a project like this?
And I think I'm going to pass this on over to Bill Wilkins, who represents the LDC of East New York. And there he is.
Okay. Bill?
Yes, thank you very much for the question, Councilman. As it relates to local hires, we have worked on several development projects in the past. And what we try to do is a deep dive into the respective zip code and use an extensive database of job-ready individuals that we are in contact with different workforce providers that have the necessary OSHA training. We try to, as comprehensively as possible, use a hyper-local approach as it relates to working locally with some of our companies in the building trade, and also hiring locally, and more importantly, having residents locally secure these apartments.
So give me an example. You're saying you've worked with the building trades in the past. Give me an example of what that looked like in different projects. How many local hires were there? And then if you can, my second question was, how many local hires would typically be involved in a project like this?
Well, I'll say it's a fluid process. It's a little difficult to give you a hard number, but in the past, as far as laborers, we were able to secure about 15 to 20 people. If you include the security detail, then that number increases to 25. Also, it depends upon who you're using as the contractors and the subcontractors, because they also hire locally. But it's something that is very important to us. It's paramount because, as you know, District 16 and Brownsville, we have a very high unemployment rate. So anytime there's an employment opportunity, we look to source those opportunities with local people.
Great. And I'm sorry that I'm going to keep harping on this, but you said 25.
I know.
Many.
Excuse me?
You said typically you hired 25. You gave an example of 25 construction workers. Like, out of what was the number of construction jobs like that?
Okay, to answer specifically, there should be about 150 construction jobs. Post-construction retail, there should be 20, and then there's 3 in building services.
Okay. Got it. And but so that is that what you're giving me this number for what the size of this project would be?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
That's in the aggregate, yes.
Okay, so got it. And then just like, how do we ensure follow-up and the progress report on these commitments?
Well, the progress report, that would be ongoing communications with the councilwoman and also with District 16, that we made representations that we intend on keeping. And we will then periodically be reporting and also asking them for help and guidance as it relates to securing these opportunities. So the process is fluid and our commitment to the community stands over 4 decades.
Right. No,
So,
look,
yeah,
what I'm saying is how as we go forward.
Right.
I'm sorry, I think I'm echoing a little bit, but I just want to make sure that there is a actual process here that is monitored, and that the councilwoman be there for that. I'm going to figure out what's happening technically with me here. That was the last question anyway. I'm going to now turn it over to Councilmember Emily Samuels for her questions. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair Moya, for those questions. That was also part of my line of questioning. And it's always related to opportunities for employment on the site during the process across all jobs. But I will say that we have a great relationship with Mr. Wilkins. And when I say we, I mean myself and the State Assemblywoman. And this is for you, Chair Moya. He's always in the hot seat when he's in our offices. And so we make sure that things are moving accordingly. And so, but this is something that's always of great concern for us because historically we'll have developers come in and say what they're going to do and then not do it. There's always some kind of an excuse as to why it's difficult to hire locally. And it's everything from we can't find folks with the proper certifications to licenses and, oh, they left. And so it's more than just providing folks from our community with a job opportunity, but also all of the soft skills training that goes along with being able to keep the job. So with that, I'll move on. Can you talk a little bit about how you're partnering with any local organizations as the administering agents for the affordable housing units themselves? And I say that because with affordable housing deals, we'll see, possibly a list in a newspaper or on Housing Connect, and maybe a couple of ads on social media, but that's it. So, and that's never enough. There's always people from someplace else that might be able to qualify for the units and still move in. And so we want to make sure that the folks from the community are the ones that are not only applying for the apartments, but have the necessary paperwork to be able to complete the process and move in. So can you speak a little bit about how you'll be able to work with the organization to make sure that the people get into the apartments as well?
Well, thank you very much for the question. I think that we have developed a model that really works because, as you know, an asset coming online like this, what we don't want is for our local residents to say, I didn't know about it. I didn't have any opportunity to go on Housing Connect. So what we do, we have one of our local businesses actually is the marketeer, and they provide those door hangers. So what we do is we saturate the community with over 20 to 30,000 announcements, and we send it also twice. And we produce probably about 50,000 flyers, and we go to local stakeholders, also local electeds, and make presentations at the community board so that everyone knows, because we would like to see this super saturated, not with just 50% of the residents of CB16, but we'd like to see that number even higher. Even though traditionally, when something of this nature goes online, a project of this nature goes online, we'll see about 60 to 65,000 responses. But we found it very effective by using these door hangers because they go into our public housing complexes, and we do the drop about 2 or 3 times. And I will highlight the fact that McQuestion is allowing us to provide this service because it is a cost, but we find it to be very effective. Other developers sometimes will say no, and they'll allude to the methodology that you stated. But this way, we have this hyper-local approach to reaching our local residents.
I'd like to add something. Bill, thank you very much. You're so eloquent as always. I also want to be forthcoming. We do that in advance because we are held to doing a lottery. But all of the actions that Bill is discussing, is talking about with the community, will be 2 weeks ahead of the opening of the lottery, so that there will be ample time for the residents in the community to be aware. There is also going to be a 50% set aside for community residents. And once that's filled, that's when we look at applicants outside of the community.
Okay, thanks. I was struggling with unmuting myself. So that's great. The outreach is very necessary. You know, of course, across the street from this development, we have family shelters. And then, as you mentioned, your presentation, right next door, there's a NYCHA tower. And so we always hear public housing residents, you know, saying, well, there's this brand new shiny building being built right next door and I can't get in. And so I appreciate the outreach effort. And my last question is clearly, and I've said this 1,000 times in our meetings, can you speak a little bit about the commercial space and the community facility uses? The commercial space in particular, because this will be ground retail. I know there's a grocery store across the street, and I always talk about access to, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables, but also, you know, my disdain for 99-cent stores and the fact that Broadway has 1,000 99-cent stores. So can you please talk to us a little bit about any potential tenants for the commercial space, and again, speak a little bit about the community facility use? And then that's it, Chair Moya, for me.
Joe Apicella, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, I would. I was just unmuted. Thank you, everyone, and I hope everyone's staying safe and healthy. On the retail, Rella and I have been involved in retail recruitment and marketing for mixed-use projects like this for many years. There's the great complexity of the uncertainty of these times. So we have been working with the LDC of East New York and Bill to focus first, council member, on looking at some banking institutions, because there's a dearth of banking institutions in the area. And Bill will speak in a moment in greater detail to the specific outreach that we have made, not successful yet. Having said that, we're also consider ourselves at McQuestion to be nimble, something Rella prides herself on. So we're working with commercial brokers that have had great success in the area, and we're focusing on things that we think can work today, such as there's a tremendous need, believe it or not, for birthing centers. With people, pregnant women hesitant to give birth in hospitals, they're looking for alternative facilities, which is a new opportunity. Childcare is a tremendous need today with the school scenarios and the like in the era of COVID. So we are working feverishly in order to try to find an appropriate commercial user that's economically viable and also provides a real service to the community and to our new residents and the residents of the area. The city planning prior to this asked us the question, well, we understand the complexity of marketing in this environment. What do we do if we have a protracted vacancy? And what we provided to them was a detailed plan of how we could temporarily engage the community through the LDC of East New York, working with Bill Wilkins, to do what we've done elsewhere, which is to have contests, arts contests, mural contests, to activate that storefront and to make it look viable in the absence of a tenant. We would employ, in the alternative as a last resort, that technique to keep the building vibrant and marketable. Bill?
Okay, thank you, Joe. Yes, when we were in front of the community board and prior to that, we did an analysis on Broadway as to what type of retail options were void on that commercial strip. And number one was a banking institution. So Joe and I rolled up our sleeves. We reached out to Bank of America. We reached out to Chase, reached out to TD Bank and Investors Bank, because some of those entities are rolling out and opening up more branches. Unfortunately, we weren't able to curry the favor that we wanted, but I think it also allows us for an opportunity to revisit those financial institutions, because that's what's needed on Broadway. That would be a coup. This building is really going to help to anchor and stabilize Broadway from its design vantage point, and also for an opportunity being so close to an MTA facility, an MTA station. So we still really like to see a bank, and we're really going to keep pushing on that and use whatever methods we can to at least have those conversations as we go forward.
Well, thank you so much for the work that you've done thus far, and I look forward to the continued process. Chair Moyer, that's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember. I now want to take this opportunity to invite my colleagues to ask questions. And just as a reminder, if you have questions for the applicant panel, please click the raise hand button on the participant panel. Council, are there any council members that have any questions? I see that we have Councilmember Reynoso.
Thank you, Chair Moya. Should I start?
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to, I would love to be able to go back to the screen that shows the rents that are going to be given here, or that are going to exist here, because I made a statement earlier on about the segregation that exists in our city and how Black and brown communities tend to bear the burden of having to build all the affordable housing. And it's extraordinary how we can have two projects that are so different in one day be presented to us. And I just want to, whatever negotiation Councilmember Ampersami was doing, the work that this developer is doing, it really is a breath of fresh air to know that people are out here trying to figure out, and that's my son in the background, I apologize, to figure out this crisis. But to think about the formerly homeless set aside, and that two people making a minimum wage here are going to be able to get have a comfortable, beautiful home. This is across the street from my district. So the only thing that I'm upset about that it's not in my district. So again, I'm really proud of the work that Councilmember Ampersami is doing here. Thank you guys so much, and I'm looking forward to voting on this in the future.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Council, are there any other council members with any questions?
Chair Moya, I see no other members with questions at this time.
Okay. There being no further questions for this panel, the panel is now excused. Thank you very much for your participation today. And I ask, are there any members of the public who wish to testify on 1510 Broadway rezoning application? The panel is excused. Thank you.
If there are members of the public who wish to testify on LU numbers 682 through 685 for the 1510 Broadway rezoning, please press the raise hand button now. The meeting will now stand at ease while we check for members of the public. Chair Moya, I see no members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Great. There being no members of the public who wish to testify, the public hearing on LUs 682 through 685 for the 1510 Broadway rezoning is now closed. The next item that we will hear is for LU 680 for the 3 St. Mark's Place special permit application relating to property located in Councilmember Rivera's district in Manhattan. The applicant seeks approval for a special permit pursuant to section 74-79 of the rezoning resolution to facilitate the construction of a 10-story building located at 3 St. Mark's Place in the East Village neighborhood of Manhattan. The special permit would allow the transfer of approximately 8,400 square feet of development rights from the designated individual landmark site across the street at 4 St. Mark's Place, known as the Hamilton Holly House. If approved, the special permit would modify the applicable bulk provisions to allow the proposed new building to penetrate the maximum front wall height and the sky exposure plane at the St. Mark's Place frontage. And now I would like to recognize my colleague, Councilmember Rivera, for a statement.
Chair Moya, I will forego my statement so we can get into the presentation if that's okay.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilmember Rivera. And Council, if you could please call the first panel for this item.
The applicant panel for this item will include Ted Rowbottom, appearing on behalf of the sponsor, Real Estate Equities Corporation. Applicant panelist, if you have not already done so, please accept the unmute request in order to begin to speak.
Good morning, and thank you, everybody.
One second. Council, if you could please administer the affirmation.
Mr. Rowbottom, please raise your right hand. Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth in your testimony before the subcommittee and an answer to all subcommittee, answer to all council member questions?
I do. Okay.
Thank you. Just state your name and the affirmation for the record. I just want to, do you have a presentation?
I do not. I do not. Chair Moya, I was going to read a statement.
So I'll just say that this is a first for me. I've been chairing this for now close to 3.5 years. I've never seen an applicant come to a public hearing not prepared with a presentation. The subcommittee in general is accustomed to seeing some type of visual presentation for these types of projects. So this is a very unusual situation. But before you begin, my question is, are you going to be able to answer questions regarding the proposal from the subcommittee members and take us through your rationale for seeking this approval?
I'm happy to answer any questions that I'm able to answer today.
Okay. You may begin.
Oh, sure. Okay. So good morning, and thank you everybody for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I have a couple things to say. Since day one on this project on St. Mark's, which almost marks 3 years ago from today, we've always been what we've felt is thoughtful and considerate about our design and how it relates to the surrounding neighborhood. As a nod to the neighborhood's aesthetic, we designed one of the only brick office buildings in the immediate area in hopes that the community would support the contextual significance of the area. And it's very important that, the community understands that we did not have to do this. We could have built a, very large glass building as of right, similar in size, without any public approval whatsoever. But out of respect for the character and the history of the neighborhood, we decided not to. Moreover, we could have designed an 85-foot street wall that did not match the height of the adjacent buildings along St. Mark's, which definitely would have seemed out of character. But again, we decided not to do that. Instead, we reached out to multiple preservation groups. We incorporated community feedback and invested a significant amount of time and funds redesigning every little detail. We were asked to work with Lesby on the design, which we had done for months. Originally opposing our development, they changed their position to actually neutral, which we felt was a very significant move on their part. But aside from the design elements, we proactively decided to help reshape for St. Mark's, which is obviously, as everybody knows, the Hamilton Holly House across the street. And as many of you know, this is one of the oldest and most historic buildings on St. Mark's Place. And this building really stood to benefit from a long-lasting continual maintenance program if our application was approved. This would have brought the building into, very sound first-class condition, and unfortunately, we cannot make that commitment any longer, and therefore cannot really guarantee that this building that was constructed in the early 1800s will retain its prominence. We made extensive efforts and reached out several times to Council Member Rivera. We offered jobs, employment training, and education, more design tweaks, but we felt that these offers were largely not considered. Nothing was even proposed back from the office that we heard that would benefit the community. And we feel that this is not only a major disservice to us, but also to the general public, and more importantly to the East Village. It should also be noted that the majority of the public testimony focuses on not just not wanting the development or our project at all, and it really doesn't focus on the nature of the application and the air rights transfer that we're applying for. And the reality here is that a building is going to be built. And so why not take advantage of the benefits that we can offer the community as the developer, as opposed to really just saying no and having nothing in return. So, in short, we're very disappointed that, our application didn't receive the support that it needed. And we felt that this minor, 8,000 square foot transfer, which really wouldn't even be noticeable to the naked eye from the street, could have rewarded the community. It would create the additional jobs, tax revenue, and an economic injection at a retail level that not only the neighborhood needs, but the city desperately needs right now. So as of today, the project's under construction. It will be built, and right now there's no public benefit in place. And in this incredibly difficult times that everybody's living in, it seems only logical and practical to me and to us to endorse a project that can help the neighborhood, its residents, and the city overall with additional tax revenue that will be generated by just a slightly larger building. So despite the negative feedback on our application, our position remains that we are in support of the community, and we're ready, willing, and able to offer something back to the neighborhood during this difficult time. So with that, I thank everybody, and we appreciate your consideration.
Thanks. Just a couple of questions before I turn it over to Councilmember Rivera, because I don't really think you addressed, and talked about the findings here. So let's go back to the basics. You have a DOB approval, and I understand that some work has already begun on site. So to me, and to most, I think it seems that you have an as of right option that is feasible and can work for you financially. So could you talk about what brings you here today and your basic justification in terms of the required findings for the special permit? And you're going to mute yourself when you're ready to answer. No, hold on.
Okay, thank you, Chair Moore. Yeah, I'm not sure I fully understand the question, but
I'll go back.
yeah, please.
Okay, you have an as of right. Okay, you've already invested money financially into this.
Correct.
That it could actually work for you if you just do your as of right. So talk to me why you're here today, your basic justification in terms of the required findings for the special permit.
Sure. So we're here today exercising an air rights transfer from a building across the street, right? And that building is for St. Mark's. And the reason we're here today is in hopes of getting that application approved, so we can continually maintain and help the landmark building at 4 St. Mark's by approving our 8,000 square foot transfer.
Okay. I'm going to go back to something else, but could you explain the difference between the proposed building envelope and the permitted as of right envelope under the C61 zoning?
So the as of right would be a 9-story building, Chair Moya. It's generally the same type of building, same type of envelope, but it will be 1 story lower. The street wall will generally be the same. And I believe also the max height of the building will also be the same. But the bulk of the building will be a little less dense. I hope that answers your question.
No, but so let me move on to something else right now. What plans do you have for local hiring or MWBE participation in terms of construction?
Well, that would be part of the application, right? So if, we had reached out to Councilmember Rivera, and we had what I thought offered that, and we, did not receive really any sort of feedback about what we should be doing to help. So that's sort of how I would respond.
What you're saying is because you didn't hear from the councilwoman, which is, like one of the more diligent council members that we have here, you're telling me you don't have a plan for local hires. You don't have an idea of how that's going to get built out. Your MWBE process to this, there is none. Is that what you're saying?
We offered to follow. I believe we offered to follow an MWBE process. We offered to hire local workers.
What is that process?
I'm not sure what you mean, but
what's your process for hiring MWBEs? What is the process that you're taking for the local hires? How many would that be? This is a normal question that gets asked in projects that are being built.
Right. Yeah. So
I think it's pretty clear, by the way. I don't know where the confusion is.
Yeah. So look, we had offered to hire local workers. We had offered to go through an MWBE program, and that was largely ignored. So we didn't run a full process because we weren't told that this process would help our application.
So what you're saying is, in order to help your application process, that's the only way you would go for local hires and MWBEs?
Not at all. That would incentivize us.
That would incentivize you. Okay. So this is not something that you would just do on a normal basis of any development that you're going into in looking at local hires and MWBE contractors.
Yeah, we always look for local hires. We hired a local architect.
You just finished saying, and I'm sorry to interrupt, you just finished saying that, are you all right?
I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. You're just saying that the incentive is if you get the local council member to agree to something, you don't actually do this on your own.
No, that's not, maybe I'm being misunderstood. No, I am saying that we are happy to hire local workers. We have already hired local workers. but we are happy to hire more, and we're happy to offer more community engagement and more involvement with the community if we receive some level of feedback from Councilmember Rivera about our application.
Okay. It's my last question, and then I'll turn it over to Councilmember Rivera. What kind of tenants or businesses do you envision occupying the building? And what plans, if any, do you have for attracting local businesses or organizations, whether it's for retail space at the ground floor or for the upper floors that deal with the office space?
Yeah, to be honest, currently right now, we don't know. Right now, it's just the hole in the ground. We are planning to start our foundation pretty soon, but it really won't be until probably 2 years until the building is delivered, Chair Moya. But largely we envision this to be hopefully local businesses that are occupying the office space. So, 1 or 2 local businesses that are occupying the retail space on the first level.
I'm going to now turn it over to Councilmember Rivera, but I will say that it is extremely disappointing that you've come here today with no presentation. Extremely disappointed in hearing your answer about local hires and MWBEs. That says a lot. I had not made up my mind on we were going with this project. But, these 2 things are heavily weighing on me now, and seeing the way that you've come in here not prepared to really answer these questions and give a thorough presentation for this rezoning. So with that, I want to turn it over to Councilmember Rivera for questions.
Thank you so much, Chair Moya. I'm sorry, it's a little dark and I don't see your name. So I just wanted to ask, were you in any of the previous meetings that we had pre-COVID in person or via teleconference when we had these conversations? I think someone has to unmute the applicant.
I personally was not.
Okay, because I was a little taken aback by your comments of meetings. We've had multiple meetings with the applicant, and I'm sorry you missed it. You must be new to the process. So again, I just want to reiterate what Chair Moya just said, which was how disappointed that you did not come with any presentation, which is something we have not seen in, I don't know, over 3 years in the council, with me being on the zoning committee. I guess I'll ask you some, let me just get right to, we did ask about community space. We did ask about affordable housing. Sometimes the applicant, and you wouldn't know because you weren't in any of the conversations, but sometimes the applicant said jobs. There was really no commitment there. There was no process. I'm a little also, I guess, disappointed or just kind of puzzled as to why I should be the one to tell you how to commit to creating good jobs and having MWBE vendors and tenants. It's startling even. I would also say that when the applicant was asked by Community Board 3 about housing and community space, the applicant said it wasn't an option. So that was a little quick history lesson for you. And I'm going to get into my questions. So the proposal is for a special permit to waive some of the height and setback regulations at the St. Mark's frontage of the building. St. Mark's Place is 60 feet wide, which makes it a narrow street under zoning. What consideration, if any, was given to shifting the bulk to the 3rd Avenue frontage, which at 100 feet is a wide street under zoning, and seeking the bulk relief on that side?
Yeah, so we, I hope this answers the question, but we basically were trying to keep the street wall at, I believe, 65 feet which to your point, Councilmember Rivera, I think matches the height of the adjacent buildings along St. Mark's. So I think as of right, we could have gone up to an 85-foot height, but instead we designed a building that would be, I believe, 65 or 60 feet along St. Mark's to match contextually and conform to the rest of the St. Mark's buildings to the east of us.
Well, this is a relatively rare instance where an owner seeks relief through this particular permit, the 74-79 special permit. Are you familiar with prior examples of this permit? Can you tell us about prior examples that have been sought outside of a central business district or adjacent to a residential district?
I cannot. I'm not a zoning attorney. I'm not a land use attorney. But happy to try and provide examples by going back to somebody like that.
Okay. When the City and Planning Commission originally adopted this special permit text in 1968, they wrote of a desire to promote architecture that will relate and enrich the areas around landmark sites and not be detrimental to its surroundings. How do you believe your development proposal achieves this?
So I think it achieves this in a few ways. Like I said, before in the beginning, we are building one of the only brick-based office buildings, in our immediate area. Across the street on Astor, 51 Astor obviously was a massive glass office building. We felt that our project should not be designed like that. And we really wanted it to conform to the rest of the buildings on St. Mark's. So we did that by not doing much glass, minimizing the glass impact, and maximizing a special brick that we imported.
Understood. Again, I just want to express my disappointment. The lack of the presentation, the tone of your comments, and just not being at the meetings where we really did sit down multiple times and trying to figure out how this was something that made sense, which thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the questions.
Thank you, Councilwoman Rivera. I want to now check with our council to see if there's any other council members that may have questions.
Chair Moya, I see no members with additional questions at this time.
Okay. So I want to thank you for your testimony today, but I want to reiterate this for the record, that this is something that really is very disappointing. The inability to answer questions that dealt with the bulk and the insufficiency of those answers, the lack of presentation is something that really has set a bad tone here. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that on the record. With that, I want to thank you for being here. And now I'm going to dismiss this panel and turn to our council, being that there is no other council members with any more questions. Council, do we have any members of the public now who wish to testify?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair Moya, we have approximately 12 public witnesses who have signed up to speak. The first witness to testify will be New York State Senator Brad Hoylman. If we still have the senator, he will be the first witness to testify.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Chair Moya, and thank you, Councilor.
Just one second before you start.
Yes.
Good to see you, Senator. Hope you're doing well. I just want to make sure that the council will swear you in before you begin. You're right.
Proceed.
Sorry, you're good to go, Senator. My apologies.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, thank you, Chair Moria, and thank you, Councilmember Rivera. Since we're talking about, in part, Alexander Hamilton and the Hamilton Holly House, I just want you to know that it's good to be in the Zoom where it happened. I hope you appreciated that. I just again wanted to thank the council and for this opportunity. I'm testifying briefly today on behalf of myself and Assembly Member Deborah Glick about the proposed transfer of over 8,000 square feet of air rights from the landmark for St. Mark's Place, the Hamilton Holly House, to the site across the street at 3 Marks Place. If approved, this transfer could result in the construction of a 10-story building, we know, at the corner of St. Mark's Place and 3rd Avenue in the East Village neighborhood that we represent, that we think will be entirely out of character on a historic block with mostly 4- and 5-story buildings. So we join the council member with her concerns, along with Community Board 3, Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer, neighborhood preservationists, and residents, and strongly urging you to vote against this application. The application also proposes to modify the height and setback requirements, as you know, of the zoning block, which would allow the developers to penetrate the maximum front wall height in the sky exposure plane. And while the proposed agreement would create a fund for the ongoing maintenance of the historic Hamilton Holly House, we believe that 5% is really a paltry sum in relation to what the community is being asked to accept. We have deep reservations regarding the terms of the transfer for this project and the legitimacy of a change to the zoning resolution that will facilitate the construction of a building with about twice as many stories as others on this historic block. Just wanted to also say that we fully support the sentiments raised by the borough president in her February 2020 ULURP recommendation and by Community Board 3 in their December 2019 resolution opposing this application, as well as groups such as the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation and the East Village Community Coalition. We thank them for their advocacy and outspokenness on this important issue. And while the developers may be willing to allocate an amount for the perpetual maintenance of the Hamilton Holly House, there doesn't seem to exist a guarantee that further development won't put the historic house at risk. Moreover, the plan to help fund the preservation of the historic Hamilton House is represented as the public benefit. It does not account for the broader context of the neighborhood, whose unique character is constantly threatened by the development process. So long and short, we oppose this application. We think the Hamilton Holly House should be preserved on merit for being a notable structure in our community that represents an important part of New York City history, not necessarily because a sale of air rights made that possible. For these reasons, we ask you to vote against this application. And again, thank you very much, Mr. Chair, for your time.
Thank you, Senator. Good to see you.
Nice to see you. Miss you in Albany.
Same here. Thank you for your testimony. If any council members have any questions for this witness, please indicate by using the raise hand button. Seeing none, right? Okay, there will be no further council member questions for this witness. Now turn it over to our council.
For members of the public who are testifying today, please note that once you have completed your testimony, you will be removed from the meeting as the next speaker is introduced. At that time, you may continue to view the live stream broadcast of the hearing at the council's website. Members of the public will be given 2 minutes to speak, and I would remind you to not begin until the Sergeant at Arms has started the clock. The next speaker on this item will be Harry Bubbins. Harry Bubbins.
Starting time.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Harry.
Great, thank you. And thank you to our local council member Rivera for continuing to listen to the community and the community board resolution in opposition to this project especially. Village Preservation is the largest membership organization in Greenwich Village, the East Village, and NoHo. We strongly oppose the air rights transfer for the landmark 4 St. Mark's Place to an office tower at 3 St. Mark's Place. The potential benefits to the landmarked house in the neighborhood are simply not worth the trade-off. Much of the restoration of 4 St. Mark's Place has already been executed. The applicant is simply seeking to get after-the-fact credit and financial benefit for this work, and extra square footage for an office tower for additional work that is not needed and doesn't justify this transfer. We have serious concerns about the planned office tower at 3 St. Mark's Place, the gateway to the East Village. We believe an even larger office tower at this prominent location would have a negative impact upon the character of the neighborhood. Part of the beauty and significance of 4 St. Mark's Place, which our organization successfully proposed for landmark designation in 2002, are the changes it's undergone over time. To simply erase those to gain approval for the air rights transfer is unnecessary and wrong. We are huge supporters of historic preservation. The nearby Merchants House Museum is a perfectly preserved slice of New York from 200 years ago. That is not what this house, which isn't even open to the public, should be or needs to be. Erasing all that history to create a facsimile of what the building looked like 2 centuries ago is neither desirable nor justifies the air rights transfer. The real purpose of the application is to simply increase the size of the office tower. The special permit is not necessary to fund needed or even desirable work. The neighborhood is undergoing significant detrimental changes as the city seeks to extend Midtown South and Silicon Alley to the area. We continue to demand landmark and zoning protections here to prevent that from happening. Allowing this tech office tower to increase in size by 20% would only make that situation worse. We thus urge you to reject the application before you today. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry, for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members who may have questions for this witness? Arthur, we got to unmute you.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Chair Moya, at this time, I see no members with questions.
Great. There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused. Thank you.
The next speaker will be Catherine Schoonover. Catherine Schoonover.
Starting time.
Catherine? Catherine, you can unmute yourself and you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. My name is Catherine Schoonover, and I'm here to testify in opposition to the proposed air rights transfer from 4 St. Mark's Place to a new, completely out-of-place office building being built at 3 St. Mark's Place. I'm a lifelong villager and grew up on Stuyvesant Street around the corner from the site at issue. I know the area well. It is known the world over as the center of the East Village and its famous counterculture. The proposed office building is totally inappropriate for the site, excuse me, and allowing the building to be 20% larger than it could otherwise be by means of an air rights transfer would only make it that much more intrusive on the character of the neighborhood and its value as a tourist destination. Furthermore, the notion that the air rights transfer is justified because it will benefit a designated landmark is laughable, since only 5% of the proceeds of the transfer are even designated to be used to maintain the historic building across the street at 4 St. Mark's Place. The rest will simply go to enrich the developers who own the property. There will therefore be little to no public benefit from allowing this transaction to proceed, whereas there will be clear harm to the neighborhood and ultimately to the city if it does proceed, because the value of St. Mark's Place as a tourist destination will be diminished. Further, the life of the neighborhood will also be diminished because the office building will continue the alarming trend of homogenizing formerly distinctive areas of the city with fungible office developments everywhere. A larger office building will mean just that much more damage to St. Mark's Place. I strongly urge you to deny the application to transfer these air rights and to instead urge the Landmarks Preservation Commission to consider extending historic district protection in the area, consistent with its unique character and social and cultural
Time
history.
expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Chair Moya, I see no members with questions at this time.
Great. There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused.
The next witness will be John Center. John Center. And I will remind the public that once removed from the meeting, you will be able to view a live stream broadcast at the council's website using the link to Virtual Room 3.
Starting time.
Chair Moya and council members, my name is John Center. I've lived on East.
All right, let's start all over again, John. It's okay. No worries. If the sergeant at arms could just.
I'm sorry, sir.
That's okay. Take your time. Whenever you're ready, John.
Chair Moya and council members, my name is John Center. I've lived on East 9th Street for more than 25 years. I'm opposed to the transfer of air rights on St. Mark's Place from number 4 to number 3. In short, Reek's proposal reeks. I urge you, the full Committee on Land Use, and the entire City Council to deny this application. Community Board 3 and other elected officials who have opposed it. Many neighbors share my view that it will be bad enough that the East Village gets yet another large commercial office building. Rampant out-of-place commercial development continues from Union Square South to Astor Place, while numerous nearby storefronts remain vacant. We need better zoning and landmark protections here, not an annex to the Death Star at 51 Astor Place. I was resigned to see a strictly commercial office building planned for 3 St. Mark's Place, but to add another 8,400 square feet to the project by transfer of air. The bulk of any benefits would go to the private developers, not to the public. We don't need to increase FAR from 6.0 to 7.2. Developer says that with the air rights transfer, his new building would better fit in with other nearby buildings. But this is a flawed notion since several of those buildings are oversized from abuse of the community facilities bonus section of the zoning resolution. I appreciate the historic repairs and renovations that have been made at the Hamilton Holly House. However, the promise of a continuing maintenance plan in exchange for a transfer of air rights is not enough. Please deny this application. I submitted longer written testimony and respectfully ask that you read and consider it before you vote. Thank you. My written testimony addresses some of the applicant's comments today in detail.
Thank you, John. Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that may have any questions for the witness?
Chair Moya, there are no members with questions at this time.
Okay. There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused. Thank you, John.
The next speaker will be Susie Schrapp. Susie Schrapp.
Starting time.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me?
Can you hear you, Susie?
Yes, okay, great. So I am the Tenants Association president at 8 St. Mark's Place, and I'm also a county committee member. I'm here to strongly oppose the air rights transfer from 3 St. Mark's Place. This is a very important project to the community. And I have to say, for somebody to come to this meeting unprepared is kind of insulting, considering how much time we have spent in looking into these things. I question why the only options are pretty with an extra 8,000 square foot or insanely ugly. Good designers can solve issues like that. And the advantages, quote unquote advantages that are presented to the community, we have never seen those proposals and we don't know what they are. And I don't understand how a developer could think that we are, unpersuadable. So I want to say that the fact that there is no proposal on the table and the interaction with the community shows how genuinely intent this developer is on developing a relationship with the people here. They don't care. And COVID has demonstrated further infrastructure problems that we've already experienced on the block for decades. The adding of retail in this particular location would only further increase an over congestion that we're already experiencing. Right now, for those of you who've been on the block, it's extremely congested. One part is the construction and the fact that it's a narrow street. Brick and mortar detail in the area is pretty dead. And adding more retail to the neighborhood
Time expired.
would only hurt local businesses. I strongly encourage you to vote against this application. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Chair Moya, no members with questions at this time.
Thank you. There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
The next speaker will be Tom Burchard. Tom Burchard.
Starting time.
Tom, whenever you're ready.
Okay, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity to say a few words about this project. Let me introduce myself. I'm Tom Burchard. I own Veselka restaurant on the corner of 2nd Avenue and 9th Street. I've been there for a long time. I love the neighborhood. I consider myself a very fortunate East Villager. I've always regarded this intersection as the entryway, the gateway, the border, if you will, to the East Village. And to me, it's particularly distressing now to have a large office building built on the corner where formerly there was a candy store, a pizza parlor, a dive bar, further down a bookstore. Listening to the developer make his presentation, I consider it highly, highly unlikely that any business like that will go into this new building. Again, when I cross 3rd Avenue, I feel like I'm entering my home neighborhood. I'm going into a neighborhood that's characterized by small buildings, many shops, mom and pop shops, many of whom are run by people I know. And to have that corner now occupied by a large office building is really emblematic of the extreme development pressure our neighborhood is facing. And honestly, it's very distressing. So I ask you to please not to approve this application, not to reward this developer with additional floor space. And I also urge the council to please institute increased zoning and landmarking protections for our neighborhood, which is so severely.
Time expired.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Moya, there are no members with questions.
There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused.
The next speaker will be Catherine Wolf. Catherine Wolf.
Starting time.
Catherine?
Yes.
Whenever you're ready, you may begin.
I'm ready.
You can begin.
Okay. My name is Catherine V. Walpe. I live at 107 East 10th Street in the St. Mark's Historic District, and I'm a parishioner at St. Mark's Church in the Bowery, located at the corner of East 10th Street and 2nd Avenue. Living in a historic district for more than 40 years has helped me appreciate the benefits of such designations in preserving our city's neighborhoods and flavors. The East Village is a unique neighborhood reflecting the diverse immigration from many countries to a neighborhood where people live together in peace. The construction site at 3 St. Mark's Place is across from the Cooper Union's historic main building, where, do I need to click something?
No, you're fine, Catherine.
Okay.
Keep going.
The construction site at 3 St. Mark's Place is across from the Cooper Union's historic main building, where President Abraham Lincoln gave a famous address in the 1800s. Granting air rights for this construction will impact this building and the Astor Place area, which is also already overcrowded. A large building will place additional burdens on subway and bus service, not to mention to pedestrians on already overcrowded nearby sidewalks and traffic. We already have NYU and Cooper Union dormitories and classrooms within a few blocks of this neighborhood. Other infrastructure affected would be water supply and electrical service. I strongly urge you not to allow this air rights transfer to take place at 3 St. Mark's Place. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Ramoya, no council members with questions for this witness.
There being no further council members that have questions for the witness, you are now excused.
The next speaker will be Mary Fran Loftus. Mary Fran Loftus.
Starting time.
Hello?
Yep.
Oh, okay. My name is Mary Fran Loftus. I have lived at 3rd Avenue and 9th Street for over 25 years against the proposed air rights transfer from the landmark St. Mark's Place to a new commercial office building at 3 St. Mark's Place, as this does not serve the public interest. An oversized office tower does not belong on St. Mark's Place. In this time of the COVID-19 pandemic, when many of our neighbors struggle to pay their rent, every block is strewn with for lease signs on storefronts, and offices require their staff to work remotely. It is unconscionable to impose a strictly commercial building on this unique and mainly residential neighborhood. This corner is considered the gateway, known for its rich cultural history in art and music. As Manhattan Borough President Gail Brewer said in her decision, quote, "The building's stated use and design is devoid of any acknowledged fact," end quote. The meager 5% of the sale of the air rights that would go towards maintenance of the Hamilton Holly House show that this proposed transfer offers relatively little benefit to the public and little true preservation purpose. To my eyes, the only purpose of the planned transfer is greed, thereby lining the pockets of the developers. The additional square footage requested in this proposal is equivalent to 11 one-bedroom apartments, which would better serve our community. Rather than transfer air rights, we need improved zoning and landmark protections in this area. I fervently urge the committee to protect the people you have been elected to serve and whose taxes pay your salaries. Join the unanimous decision by Community Board 3 and Borough President Gail Brewer. Deny this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Jeremiah, I see no members with questions for the witness.
There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused.
The next speaker will be Kathleen Wakeham. Kathleen Wakeham.
Starting time.
Kathleen?
Yes, I'm here.
Kathleen?
Yes,
Yeah. So Kathleen, wait, before you start.
yes.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah, we can see you.
My name is Kathleen Wakeham of the Metropolitan Council on Housing. I am a rent-stabilized tenant who has lived in the East Village since 1973. Because I am aware of the needs and character of our community, I ask, please do not approve air rights or any other concessions for the proposed high-rise at 3 St. Mark's Place. As we know, over 24,000 New Yorkers have died from COVID-19. Over 1 million have lost jobs and another million are facing eviction because of inability to pay rent. In these times, our community does not need another high-rise tower. This proposed tower will not provide employment because many are working from home if they are not already unemployed. The changing face of the world of work demonstrates that high-rise office space is something of the past, not the future. It will not provide needed affordable housing. Rather, it will only increase the vacancy rate to over 5% because very few, if any, can afford rents in a high-rise tower. The benchmark of 5% by the Housing Vacancy Survey may end rent stabilization. The survey is to be issued next year pending legislation in Albany. Also, this construction will drastically impact our neighborhood. It will be an erection of the Grim Reaper over the demise of the East Village. Please do not approve air rights or any other concessions for the proposed high-rise tower at 3 St. Mark's Place. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen, for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Moya, no council members with questions at this time.
Okay, so there being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused. Thank you so much, Kathleen.
The next speaker will be Laura Sewell. Laura Sewell.
Starting time.
Laura?
I am joining.
Okay.
Thank you. I'm Laura Sewell. Oops. I'm trying to start my video. Here we go.
Okay.
I'm Laura Sewell,
okay,
the director of the East Village Community Coalition and a longtime East Village resident. The developers have heard over and over again from our community regarding the use of an air rights transfer for this particular project. Community board hearings on the subject, both landmarks and land use hearing committees, exceeded capacity. They were packed. People waited hours for the chance to say the same thing. Our community simply doesn't find enough public benefit on offer. CB3 agreed. Limited additional work and a maintenance plan for the recently restored Hamilton Holly House does not offset the impact of adding an oversized commercial property here at the expense of a neighborhood already experiencing extreme development pressure. The response from the developers to any real community concessions was that it was not an option. We had an attitude of, you don't seem to understand, we're going to build anyway. We could have made it all glass, or we'll make it prettier if we can make it bigger. That was the response. And I agree with the people who've said today that that is extremely disappointing for such an important corner to our neighborhood. It is the gateway. It is a plaza that is the path to the East Village from the west side, and any development here should reflect the character of the Lower East Side East Village Historic District. And thank you very much for your time and for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Moya, no council members with questions for this witness.
Okay, there being no further council members with questions, this witness is now excused.
The next speaker will be Trevor Stewart. Trevor Stewart.
Starting time.
Chair Moya, subcommittee members, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in opposition to the proposed air rights transfer, and I believe in support of Councilwoman Rivera's opposition. My name is Trevor Stewart, and I've lived in the village for over half my life. The office tower planned for 3 St. Mark's Place is completely inappropriate for this neighborhood. More office space and retail space, unfortunately, crying out for a bank, a drugstore, or a Starbucks, not what we need. Unfortunately, this is part of the city's misconceived plan to transform the neighborhood into an extension of Silicon Alley in Midtown South by demolishing low-rise historic residential buildings and replacing them with high-rise office towers. The approval of the 14th Street Tech Hub last year is accelerating this disturbing trend. Unfortunately, the damage to 3 St. Mark's Place is now done. It's history, water under the bridge. The matter before you today is whether to add insult to injury to make this inappropriate development of 3 St. Mark's 20% larger by approving the transfer of air rights from the landmarked Hamilton Holly House across the street. The proposed air rights transfer would harm the character of the East Village, as you've heard from others, and is not in the public interest. The 5% of the proceeds that would go towards maintenance of Hamilton Holly is hardly needed. The house is in good condition and doesn't need an air rights transfer to fund its maintenance. There's little benefit for the public and little true preservation purpose. Instead, the purpose of the planned transfer seems largely to be to enrich 2 developers. Instead of increasing the size of this out-of-character development, the city should instead extend real landmark and zoning protections to this area. Unfortunately, it has consistently refused to do so. I strongly urge you to not approve this air rights transfer. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members that have any questions for this witness?
Chair Moya, no members with questions for this witness.
There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused. Thank you so much for your testimony today.
The next speaker will be Anita Isola. Anita Isola.
Starting time.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Okay. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened here. But anyhow, I live on East 10th Street between Broadway and 4th Avenue. I have lived in the village for my whole 70 years, and I have watched the changes that have been coming about. The most drastic is what I'm seeing now in this East Village area, this south of Union Square that has been targeted by the city as the new Silicon Alley or Midtown South. This building is totally out of character. It totally mars the gateway to the East Village. There is no public benefit because the meager 5% of the proceeds is not needed to maintain this building. The argument that was made about these local businesses that will be moving in is also ludicrous. No little local businesses typical of the East Village will be moving in there. There will be a bank, and there will be a drugstore, and maybe if you're lucky, there will be another nail salon. I am very deeply opposed to this transfer. What we need in this area is a rezoning and landmarking protection that will prevent any further marring of this area. Thank you for your attention. I very strongly urge that you deny this request. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. Council, do we have any council members who have any questions for this witness?
Moya, I see no members with questions for this witness.
Thank you. There being no further council members with questions, the witness is now excused.
If there are any other members of the public who wish to testify on LU number 680 for the 3 St. Mark's Place proposal, please press the raise hand button now. The meeting will now stand at ease while we check for members of the public. Pardon me, Chair Moya, there are no other members of the public who wish to testify on this item.
Thank you. There being no other members of the public who wish to testify for the public hearing on LU 680 for 3 St. Mark's Place, the hearing is now closed. That concludes today's business. Today's applications are laid over. I remind you that if you have written testimony on these items, you may submit it to landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov, and please indicate the LU number and or the project name in the subject heading. I would like to thank the applicants, members of the public, my colleagues, the subcommittee council, and the land use and council staff, the sergeant at arms. Yep.
Chair Moya, sorry, just before you adjourn.
Yes.
We'll come back for the vote.
Oh, my apologies.
On the subcommittee vote, by a vote of 5 in the affirmative, 1 in the negative, and no abstentions, the item is approved and referred to the full land use committee.
Thank you. And now that concludes today's business. Today's applications are laid over. I remind you that if you have written testimony on these items, you may please submit them to the Land Use Testimony Council at landusetestimony@council.nyc.gov. Please indicate the LU number and or project name in the subject heading. And of course, I would like to thank again the applicants, members of the public, my colleagues, the subcommittee council, land use and other council staff, and the sergeant at arms for participating in today's hearing. This meeting is hereby adjourned. Thank you.